What's going on, guys? My name's Cole McClendon and welcome back to another video. Today we're going back in the history books. We're going back to some of my original shots where I was originally learning photography almost 2 years ago, and we're gonna go back and edit some of those photos and we'll see how we do. If we've gotten better at editing, whether or not gear matters, we'll touch on those points. So stick around to find out a little bit more about that. So if you didn't know, I went to Australia about 2 years ago. I went from October until the new year. I came back about January 3rd, and I spent those 3 months living in a Nissan Pathfinder, which is quite a smaller size SUV, with a bed in the back with my two brothers as we road tripped up the East Coast in Australia. And that sort of was a wake-up call to me. I took the semester off school. I was originally going to school for biomedical science, and it sort of showed me that that wasn't the path I wanted to take. And actually at that point I had already switched paths to a different one, but to another university program. But it sort of showed me that I needed to be a little bit more creative, and it was actually a very eye-opening experience for me, more than just traveling in general being enjoyable. So I pretty much had my camera on me at all times. I was always shooting. I was shooting video as well as some photo and stuff. But I didn't have the greatest gear in the world, but I still was taking a ton of pictures. I challenged myself to post on Instagram every day, which I did for the first 60 days or so. And I had a ton of fun doing it. I learned a lot along the way. So if we jump into Lightroom here, you can see that I've loaded up 3 images. 2 of them are from the same location. One of them, they're from about the same week or so, but I picked these images because I actually never got around to editing these photos. They were towards the end of the trip. They were within the last 5 or 6 days or so. And I was taking pictures and we were moving around a lot. We were driving from the capital city, which is inland a little bit, to the tallest mountain in Australia, which is actually this first photo here, which we then climbed, and then drove all the way to Melbourne and then partied for New Year's before we headed home on the 3rd of January. So it was a crazy week. I never actually got to editing these photos, and I came back and started applying for college program and got into a program, and within 2 weeks of it starting, and then my life just sort of has snowballed from there. So I never got around to editing these photos, so I'm kind of excited to do it. But I want this video to sort of show that even on a beginner camera or things like that, you can still get great results, and you can still take that time while you're using that gear to learn some fundamentals like editing and like shooting properly. So let's jump first into this photo here, which is actually at the peak of the tallest mountain in Australia. I say that like it's a big deal, but the tallest mountain in Australia is not insanely tall. Let's just say that. We hiked from the starting point to the peak and back within about 8 hours or so, which isn't the whole height of the mountain. We're not starting from sea level by any means, but we were definitely hiking, and I was definitely sore after. So this photo is from the peak of that mountain. So as you can see, especially from the histogram, this photo is actually pretty well shot. There's not really any clipping or anything. The highlights here aren't clipping. There's no whites that are too bright, and there's no darks that are too dark. So this photo is actually pretty well shot. To be honest with you, at that point, I was probably shooting aperture priority, and it's looking like I was at f9. So I probably just threw it on aperture priority, wanted to get as much depth of field as I could within focus, and took some photos of this mountain range here, and I wanted to get some layers here. But yeah, like I said, it's not the tallest mountain. It's not the most breathtaking of mountain ranges, but it was definitely beautiful being up there. So let's jump into editing this photo. I'm gonna go ahead and do this basic panel here, just make some basic changes and add some interest to the photo. So there we go. That didn't take very long at all. I just wanted to sort of bring up some contrast, as you could see, it was a little flat. The mountains themselves were there's not a lot of detail in here. It's just sort of these flat rolling hills here with this creek going down it. So I wanted to bring out a little bit of the detail in these plants and bring out as much as I could and add some interest to the photo. Next, I'm gonna go to the tone curve here. And what I usually like to do is add 3 little dots here on each one of these intersects. And then I go from there, and I usually drop my shadows, bring up the mid-tones, bring up the highlights a little bit, and then I'll add some a bit of a faded look here with, there's not a lot of blacks though, so it's, we'll do what we can. All right, so there we go. I'm kind of happy with that. It's sort of adding even more contrast and interest there, as well as in the blacks, adding a little bit of a faded look. Then I'm gonna go through the HSLs and just sort of create the style that I want, bringing the, I'll usually bring the blues to a little more of an aqua, the oranges towards a yellow. This is just the style I've created over the years, and I'm just gonna try and input that into this photo. All right, so there we go. We've got the HSLs done, and I'll sort of explain my thinking as I went through here. There were sort of two main sections within this photo. There's the sky here with the, goes from a bit of an aqua to a blue to the purple. So it's the purple up here and then the blue and then the aqua. So I was just trying to get a bit of a gradient going there, making sure that the colors were different and there were different levels of luminance. So I made the aqua a little bit more luminant than the blue, and then the purple even darker. So I just had that light to dark going from bottom to top. And then down here was the other section, which is the land. And I was just trying to get as many different tones as I could. I was bringing out some oranges within the, or I was trying to make the orange a little darker here, as you can see in the hue, bringing the yellows up towards the greens a little bit. And then the greens, actually, there's not very many greens at all. There's two little bushes. There's like one right there, and then there's one somewhere over here. So the blue or the green actually doesn't make much of a difference. So I tried to bring what I normally do with the greens into the yellows, since that's actually what most of this is. So we could actually do a cool thing like this and bring it down like that. I might actually like that more than what we had before. So bring that down a little bit more, add a little bit more interest, like to this orangey feel. And then the saturation, same thing. I was just trying to exaggerate what I did sort of in the hues. So then we get down to split toning, and what I normally like to do, if you watch my other tutorials, is just add a bit of a teal and orange feel. In landscapes, you can really exaggerate this feeling a little bit more. You don't have to worry too much about affecting skin tones or anything like that. So you can sort of play around with this a little bit more. I might actually even want to try and play around with different colors. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I had, so I'm going to keep it there. But then once we're done with the split toning there, which as you can see didn't make too much of a difference, but it just sort of added that contrast and sort of just added the blues to the shadows, which pulls away from the orange feeling of the photo that it had already. Then we want to get into sharpening. If I hold Alt here, I can see what I'm masking out and sort of really get down and select what I want to mask. And what I really want is just the details within that mountain. So we're going to do that. And then now I'm looking at that small window on the right to see what details I want. Still holding Alt, by the way, to get this black and white look for each one of these sliders. And then I just go bottom to top from those 4 sliders pretty much. So that's looking nice and sharp. We've got all these different tones here. And if we hit reset here, let's take a look at what we've done so far. Like this is a big difference already. We brought so much more to the table that this photo had, and so much more detail and so many more tones than it originally had, because it looked so flat before. But that's all within the photo, and you just have to bring that out. So that's what's really fun about editing. Let's just try enabling profile corrections here. It's pretty much just getting rid of this vignette. It's bringing, it's fixing some of the distortion down here, because this was shot at 24 mils on a cropped sensor, so it's actually pretty wide. So it's fixing some of that, but I honestly like this vignette here that it's giving. So the natural vignette of the lens, I'm gonna keep that for now. Let's just see what the auto transform does for us. It didn't really do anything. That's what I didn't think it would. It was a pretty straight shot already. The horizon was already pretty straight, so I wasn't expecting anything, so I'm happy there. I'm gonna add a little bit of post-crop vignette just to add a little bit more focus on these mountains and this range down here, just so we can really be pulled into the center of the image, because that's really what's important there. And now we get to the calibration section, and if you've watched my past editing tutorial on the New York portrait session, you saw I've talked a little bit about calibration in that video. And what I said in that video is by the time you get to the calibration section, a lot of the time you're already happy with the photo. I'm already pretty happy with this picture, but I'm wondering if there's any way I can make it better, or if there's any way I could add my own style or my own spin to this. So right now it's looking really nice. I have so many different tones. I have so many different points of interest that I'm pretty happy with it here, but we're gonna see if there's anything in the calibration that can make it more fun. To do that, I really just like to grab one of the primaries, swing it either way, and just see what it's doing to the photo, and then find a nice balanced point in between. So let's grab this red primary here, and we're gonna drag it around. And this, I don't really like it. It's bringing too much yellow to the table. I just don't really like that look at all. But if we bring this to the left a little bit, it's adding this this nice deep green and this red that's very like super contrasty, and I like the look of it. But we're gonna reset that for now and then see what the other ones are gonna do. So this is almost really similar actually to this. So this is almost the red primary all the way to the right is almost the same as the green primary all the way to the left. So that's interesting. Let's try all the way to the right, and it's very similar to the red primary all the way to the left. So that's interesting. So if we do both of those, it's probably going to compound. If we do the opposites, it's actually giving us kind of a nice look here. But let's go to the blue primaries and see what this does. See, that's something crazy that I'm never going to want in a photo. And even if we bring this saturation around, it's just wild. Like, it's too much. If we go all the way to the left, this is also crazy, but honestly, those contrasting colors is somewhat of a cool look. And that means if we were to bring that down a little bit and then bring the saturation around, that's a cool style in itself. You have the red mountains with the bright blue sky. It's a really cool look. So I'm going to play around with this for a second, and I will come back and let you know what I end up with. Alright, so I played around with it a little bit, and I think I'm actually happy with this. So as you can see, I did a little bit in every single section here. And like I said, like we saw in the red primary, I liked those contrasting green and reds, but I didn't go all the way over. I actually did that a little bit to counteract what I did on the green primary, as well as this blue primary. I went a little bit towards this, but not nearly all the way. I went to -14 and brought the saturation down, so it wasn't as intense of a change. And then I actually went ahead into the shadow tint and brought that towards the greens a little bit, because if I reset this, you can see that what the changes I made really brought the reds and the oranges out of the mountain, and leaning a little bit towards the pinks even as well. So when I brought this down to -10, it sort of brings it back to where it began with those greens. Because if we reset this, you can see most of that mountain is green. Most of it's green with the dark browns and some reds and stuff. So I wanted to bring it back towards that green starting point and have it a little bit more of a realistic feeling. But that's what I did to pull it back towards that point. But yeah, if we flip this on and off using the backslash button, you can see that these changes are quite drastic. The amount of detail within this picture on the bottom half here is pretty crazy, the amount of contrast I was able to pull out. But that's the fun of editing right there, and that's sort of why I like to do it. And I don't know if I would have been able to do this 2 years ago. It was end of December 2017 when I took this picture, and I'm not sure I had the know-how or the practice in Lightroom to be able to edit the photo this sort of way back then. But I'm going to go ahead and speed through these other two photos and see what we can pull out on these ones. I'm not going to talk through them as much. I'm just going to edit them and do a bit of a time lapse, and then I will show you at the end. All right, and there we go. I have finished the edits on these two photos. I'll explain a little bit about what my thinking was and stuff like that in these ones. This second one actually was kind of fun to do because I haven't done silhouette photos like this. How I decided, if you look at this, you can see there's a little bit of info in these dark areas and stuff that I could bring out if I wanted to. But I actually decided to go and darken those up pretty much all the way to black and create this silhouette with these cool trees that are within this lake. As you can see, I sort of was a little shaky, or the focus was a little off or something, but this cool lake area with all these trees within the water. So I decided to do a silhouette photo like this, which I actually haven't done in a long time, probably since traveling, and it's a lot of fun doing these. So again, with the sky, I just wanted to create this nice gradient from dark blue to light blue to almost white to yellows to oranges to reds. So I tried to really focus on that, along with creating a nice color in this cloud, and then that silhouette, as well as some nice color and detail in the water. I wanted to have this tree in the lower right hand intersection of the rule of thirds to create some nice framing there. So that's sort of what my thinking was going into that one. And then this one, I just wanted to create some nice colors, like a nice sunset view with this tree being a subject along with this tree being a subject. It's a little bit difficult with this photo because this tree is so far up to the side. I almost would like to have it be a subject of its own, kind of like this. But I also really like this hill here and think that it's part of the subject as well. And the way I shot it, it's sort of in between both, and it's not the greatest shot. So that's something that I've learned since this trip, since 2017, that I would have tried to fix in camera, and it's hard to, you can't really do it in editing. So yeah, these are the three photos. We can go through and show the befores and after, and I would say that I was able to create some nice images here, and at least this one and the first one I would definitely put on my Instagram even now. So it's definitely worth going back into old photos when you thought you weren't as good, and taking the new skills you've learned, even in just editing, and applying those to your old photographies. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe down below, and if you want to add something or have gone through old photos of your own and you want to tell me about it, or the community about it, feel free to leave a comment below. Let's start a discussion about it. Or tag me in those photos on Instagram at Cole McLennan, and follow me there if you haven't already. That's where I post all of my photography stuff, and updates and things like that, and things on my life. So make sure to follow me there, and hit that like button, because it definitely does help put these videos in front of more people's eyeballs. So I'd really appreciate it. But for now, this video is over, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace. What's going on, guys? My name's Cole McLennan. Oh, this fell. Dang, bro.